The race for AI dominance has reached a tipping point. While the US leads in raw innovation and high-end hardware, China is rapidly closing the gap through massive industrial scale and open-source models. In this video, we break down the hardware bottleneck, the digital Silk Road, and who actually holds the keys to the future of global technology.
So you know what, we're going to make a shift to discuss AI technology. And you know what, and I hope that we can do segments about this, because who is a bigger threat to the United States and the global community? Is it China? Is it US technology companies? But I'm going to start someplace else. I have a video that I want to show you. Look at these multi-million-dollar companies and the power that they have. I would like to go back to the Patriots Act.
Okay.
Do you think that after the bombing of 9/11, that the government rushed to institute the Patriots Act where they could listen to people's information, Google's and Yahoo and all these other institutions? Do you think that was improper? Did the United States step too far?
Okay, one, I'll be brief, because I know you have several questions. One, the whole thing with the USA Patriot Act, they already had that in place. They already had that set up. What they did was they used the situation of, they talking about that these buildings were attacked by terrorists. Those people that attacked, a number of them were trained by the CIA as well as Israeli intelligence. Okay, there's a book by Alexander Cockburn, Cockbun, entitled Whiteout, and it's about the CIA and the Taliban and the U.S. armies and military, right? By Alexander Cockburn. He used to write for The Nation magazine. He wrote the Beat the Devil column. He was a columnist, with The Nation magazine for a number of years until he died more than 7 years ago from cancer. And he's one of the co-founders of AK Press with Jeffrey St. Clair. And and he has a website you can get information on counterpunchnewsletter.com. Counterpunchnewsletter.com. But what I want to say is that this thing with 9/11, they set that up. They set that up because what they're trying to do, they wanted to try to push more draconian policy and take away people's rights. That they know that those people that were involved had connections to certain people from the U.S. military and the CIA and U.S. intelligence and Israeli intelligence community. And this whole thing with the U.S. Patriot Act, they wanted to get deeply into people's lives. And that's the reason why they were so upset with Snowden. Edward Snowden, who exposed a lot of the stuff that was going on. Edward Snowden was the CIA and NSA contract agent. And he exposed how these intelligence agencies were getting people's metadata. They were taking your email, faxes, Facebook, and they were creating digitized dossiers, right? They have files on everybody, right? And also they have a program called Total Information Awareness. Total Information Awareness, right? And so they were trying to gather as much information on people as possible, because they're freaks for information. Their thing is, when they get the information, they want to use it in a way to manipulate, control people. They're not interested in trying to educate people. They're trying to control people. They try to use the information to threaten people, right? And so what we try to do, the group I work with, try to expose a lot of the stuff that's going on. But go ahead with your AI. The whole thing with China is they've mastered the AI, artificial intelligence.
I was going to ask you something in regards to that, because when we talk about Eric Snowden, he exposed the NSA for listening in on people's telephone calls and invading their privacy. Even though he signed a disclosure saying he was a contractor that he would not reveal that.
He signed a non-disclosure form, right?
Yeah. Do you feel that he was out of line?
No, he was not out of line. See, Edward Snowden reminded me of Philip Agee, former CIA case officer who wrote the book Inside the Company, the CIA Diary, where he exposed what the CIA had been doing in Latin America and South America all over back in the early 70s, 1973, 74. And then he also, Philip Agee, who I got a chance to meet years ago, also co-founded Covert Action Information Bulletin. And also they were involved with a magazine called Counter Spy magazine, as well. The Public's Eye magazine, and another magazine out of London called the Red Lobster magazine or journal. And so I think it's important, that people need to understand just where these people are coming from. They're about power and control. See, Philip Agee and as well as Edward Snowden, as well as there was another fellow that was with the National Security Agency that was a whistleblower. They were exposing what the U.S. government and different intelligence agencies were doing and stuff. And see, the CIA not supposed to spy on American citizens, but they had some called Operation, CIA Operation Chaos, and other operations targeting student groups and others within the borders of the United States. There's a book that you can get called The American Police State by David Wise, W-I-S-E. The American Police State was the espionage establishment by David Wise and Thomas Ross, as well as The Invisible Government by Thomas Ross and David Wise. So what they're trying to do, they're trying to create right now with the help of the so-called president, right? The one who's wearing the toupee and everything and the adult diaper. Enlightenment movement. It's a neo-reaction. There's a movement called the Dark Enlightenment movement, right? That people like Curtis Yarvin, Steve Saylor, Nick Land, morons like Vance, the vice president, and others, the others who are part, including Peter Thiel, who are part of this movement, right? Including Elon Musk and whose family own mines in Canada and stuff. So they're trying to create these, support these neo-reactionary. They're part of the NRX or neo-reactionary movement, right? The people who consider themselves accelerationists, they want to accelerate. They want to do.
Brother Randy, as we discussed this, I would like to know, when we look at the AI race between China and U.S. corporations, in your opinion, who is winning the race? And is there a danger to the global community about whoever wins the race, whether it's the U.S. companies or China?
Well, my thing is, both of them are about domination and power and stuff. And China, because it's been disrespected by Europeans over the years, centuries and stuff, they've been battling with the U.S. because the U.S. had also disrespected China. They had the Exclusion Act, the Chinese where they couldn't work. They tried to keep the Chinese out this was more than 80 some years ago. So the U.S. has had all kinds of acts and policies and rules against the Chinese. They even talk about, when they refer to China, Chinese, they refer to them as the Yellow Peril. Yellow, Y-E-L-L-O-W, Peril, P-E-R-I-L, right? So,
when you talk, that's profound. What is the difference between China having facial recognition, to track all the citizens, and us having a phone? Because they're saying that is so wrong what China is doing, having facial recognition, but they're tracking everybody on phones. Is there a huge difference?
It's equally bad because they're about control. See, the American, I've been doing it. The intelligence agencies have been doing this for years. All you have to do is check out certain films. If you think I'm kidding, check out the John Wick films. They use a certain form of check. Check out John Wick. Check out Jason Bourne, right? Where one of the films, I think it's the third one, where they had set up little systems where they can create digitized dossiers on numerous people, right? Then you can check out the film with Denzel Washington and Ryan Reynolds entitled Safe House, where Denzel Washington plays a CIA officer, right, who's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to expose what these people are doing, and they're trying to kill him because he got a hold to some microfilm or some microfiche exposing the misdeeds of American as well as European and Asian intelligence agencies. And their job, the people, they set up the CIA officers, intelligence officers to neutralize, right, which means kill, right? Terminate with extreme prejudice. It means tweet. When they say tweet, it means terminated with extreme prejudice, right? To kill that person.
Yes.
Perform a wet job, right? And so there's a book called Spooks by Jim Hogan that talks about all this stuff. Jim Hogan, Spooks, Spooks, right? Talks about the intelligence community, as well as Jeffrey Richardson's book, The U.S. Intelligence Community by Jeffrey Richardson, right? So these people have been spying on us for years, and so it's been exposed by Bill Turner, former FBI agent, who worked with Warren Hinkle, right? He used to put out a magazine called Ramparts magazine, where they uncover a lot of undercover CIA agents and operations back in the late 60s, early 70s. And then you had Larry Flint with the Hustler magazine coming out with the Rebel newsletter, news magazine, pieces written by Ward Churchill and Russell Means talking about the Israeli aggression in the Middle East, the circumcised Nazis, talking about the racist Zionists, whatever, that are over there killing and engaging in acts of genocide against Palestinian people and other people who are non-Jewish.
Okay. You got a response in the chat room. It says, Barbara Bush called Philip agreed on, what's that on track?
I'm sorry. It says Barbara Bush called Philip A.G. a traitor. That's not true. Barbara Bush's husband was a former CIA director. George Herbert Walker Bush was CIA director for less than 2 or 3 years. So of course he'll say it. George Herbert Walker Bush Sr. Was an operative of the CIA. Look at the Zapata offshore. Okay, company named Zapata. These were CIA cutouts, dummy corporations that were created by the CIA. They were called CIA proprietaries. Get the book, The CIA, The Code of Intelligence, by John Marks and Victor Marchetti. Marchetti.
Yeah, they say you popping, brother, like Bobby Herman and Steve Copley. He was trained by Steve.
I was trained by Steve. I learned a lot of stuff from brother Steve Copley, who birthday's coming up. He was born in Gemini. He's Gemini. His birthday coming up in June, and he died April 11th on 4/11, which would be information, right? 4/1, April 11, 2012, brother Steve Copley. And I know Bobby Hemming. I met him more than 15 years ago. And but he likes to use very colorful language, if you know what I mean. Okay, so I'm a little different from him. I respect him, but it's a little different. My language is a little different. All right.
Well, you know what? When we again, I must emphasize that who was the biggest threat to the global community when it comes to the advancement of AI technology and to possibly enslave the people, whether it's China or U.S. industries.
Well, like I said, the real threat is the United States. Too, they're the number one threat, the world threat, the global threat. China is doing what they do. I mean, you have the U.S. that is feel threatened by China and trying to neutralize China and trying to control China because China is outproducing them. And also China, in terms of their gross national product and gross domestic product, I mean, it's just unbelievable. The U.S. is just jealous. I'm not sure whether it's penis envy or ethnic envy or what.
Yes.
But they're jealous of the Chinese. You can study their history. The Chinese are well respected. Their civilization, they have ancient civilization, but they're not always African civilization. The oldest civilization on this planet is African civilization. Get the book, The 100 Basic Facts of the Negro by J.A. Rogers, as well as the works by Ronoka Rashidi about the early African presence in Asia by Ronoka Rashidi, the great researcher who died more than 4 years ago from COVID.
Yeah, you know what? I want to thank the people for listening in, and this is a show you can call in if you want to. because I'm sure you might have better questions than me. I would like to ask you, when I talk about China, is there a massive threat? Because they're coming out with humanoid robots that perhaps it would be a back door to give metadata back to the Chinese government, and China is buying land next to military bases.
Right,
Could that metadata at some point during a conflict be weaponized?
Of course, it can be weaponized. I mean, metadata and stuff. Of course, look at what the CIA has done. I mean, come on. I mean, the different spy agencies. I mean, check out the website intercept.com. The Intercept, INTERCEPT. I'm sorry, it's Intercept, right? .com. That's Glenn Greenwald and them, and they're exposing what these different groups are doing. They've been around more than 7 years. The Intercept.com. They've been using this metadata for years, and their competitors. Of course, they're going to be. I mean, the China. But there's a book you need to get about AI. It's called AI Snake Oil. Get the book AI Snake Oil. You can order it from Amazon or whatever bookstore, whatever. But you can go even a half-price bookstore here in Illinois, Orland Park, Illinois, half-price bookstore, or go to the location in Countryside, Illinois, and order the book, AI Snake Oil. Okay.
So there's. I would like to know what that you said that metadata could be weaponized if there was a war, and the AI race. Is there a big danger because these computers and these humanoids, they will evolve and they will start doing self-learning? Is that a possibility that be a danger against society where it will develop a sense of awareness?
Okay, I'm trying to tell you. Hold on. See, you've been watching Terminator. Terminator. You watching Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator. Yes, there is a concern, but my thing is this: they need people to program the AI and stuff. They need people also not just AI, but ML, machine learning, right? But there's some business, some jobs, construction jobs. You become a bricklayer, mason, electrician, plumber. Those are AI proof, right? And to me, AI stands for absolutely ignorant, right? So you don't give too much AI. That book, AI Snake Oil, tells you what it does and what it doesn't do. AI does what it can do, what it cannot do, right? So let's stop. I mean, AI doesn't have that much credibility as far as I'm concerned, because the biggest computer you have, in period, is the one above your neck, is on your shoulders.
You say it will not evolve.
On your neck.
It will not. It will not evolve.
Francis Cress Wilson said, he talks about that. You're going to look at the Spook Salvador by Sam Greenlee. The film by Sam Greenlee, as well as the novel by Sam Greenlee.
Yes.
He talks about you have to learn how to use your mind. Human ingenuity is the key. You got to be able to outthink these things and outmaneuver these people. That's why they took the Spook Who Shot by the movie, The Spook Who Shot by the Door, off the market, right? The FBI did this back in the early 70s, 73, 74, because they saw this particular film showing people how to engage in guerrilla warfare against the state. Yes. That's what they were concerned about.
So you're saying it will never evolve in
humorous?
Over 600,000 black people lost their job, and then so you add that to this, over 300,000 black women have lost their job because there's morons through Project 2025 and stuff, and the Heritage Foundation, all of them working together, and then they also got rid of the federal civil service stuff. So you had a lot of black people at federal jobs have lost their jobs in the past year. You have Pete Hegseth, the psychopath, firing 4 or 5-star generals and stuff like that, who are much more sharp and intelligent than he is. So what Trump has done, he's hired media.
Let me tell y'all something. I'm trying to stay on YouTube.
Oh, I'm sorry about this.
But
go ahead.
But my question is to you, all of these data centers, there are communities that are crying out loud
in the South
and going to court and saying it's making too much noise, it's dumping poisonous water. What is your take on these data centers?
I agree with them, and we need to shut them down. They need to put them data centers right there where Trump is, taking data centers over to Mar-a-Lago and send them over to Elon Musk houses and stuff they own. He owned probably about 200 houses, knowing that scumbag Elon Musk.
When you talk about that, they need to shut them down. You know what? I've heard other people say that Google's and Yahoo and Twitter and all this is a danger to the society because they're collecting information and possibly even training humanoids for the future.
Sure.
What is your opinion on that?
Well, the thing about it is that these people, they need to read William Gibson's Necromancer. William Gibson. I haven't read any of his works lately. I'm not sure if he's still alive. But William Gibson used to write a lot of stuff about all this stuff that's going on and stuff. And I think it's important that our people study what these people are doing and then try to counter it. All people need to join the World Futurist Society. They put out a magazine called The Futurist that you get from Barnes and Noble and B. Dalton Books and different bookstores that carry it. So go and join the World Futurist Society and also get Alvin Toffler's works, The Future Shock, The Third Wave, The Ectospasm Report, as well as get John Naisbitt's books, Megatrends 1, 2, and 3, Megatrends 2000, Megatrends Asia, and so American Trends in America by John Naisbitt, and just numerous work. Also check out the artist Will I Am. Study him. Look at what he's doing. Will I Am. They used to be with the Black Eyed Peas group. Okay.
My question to you is, this is a very critical question I would like to ask you. How could the average citizen complain about losing their privacy? Because when they join Twitter, they join Facebook or YouTube, in the disclosure, it says that they can use the information. So how can you complain about them taking your privacy, and you have essentially given them the permission to take your privacy by signing up for their platform? Would you agree?
No, I don't agree with that because, see, they use deception and substitution. You don't know what you get into. That's why I'm very cautious when dealing with AI. So that's not actually accurate.
But you don't acknowledge that you put a check mark saying that I have no problem with it. You don't acknowledge.
I don't see the thing about you don't know what it entails. See, there are people who can lie by omission or lie by commission. There are people who can lie by withholding information from you. You understand what I'm saying? So they'll tell you everything. They say, when you sign this piece of paper, you sign this thing, you should ask questions.
When you say that the typical person is not going to read all that information,
they're not going to read a lot of time because they're trying to work, take care of family, feed themselves, keep the lights on, pay the rent, pay the mortgage, feed,
but you
take the children to school.
But you gave authorization. Do you do it?
No, I'm trying to tell you, you can go. I'm saying they did not. Yeah, I mean, if you sign, I'm saying you don't know what you sign a lot of times. So I'm just saying, I'm saying that the people need to be better informed, need to ask questions. That's it. But they don't sign with themselves. Always ask questions and then look into and try to find out. Do the research.
Okay. So this is the reason. And you know what? I'm gonna have to end because you know what? I want to bring him back with his permission to talk about AI technology and other subject matters like gentrification that is taking place and people are being pushed out in Chicago and New York because multi-million-dollar corporations buying things. Like the Obama Center has pushed a lot of people out. But Randy, I asked you all these questions. Is there a particular message you would like to leave with the audience?
Okay, well, I'd like to say that one, I hope people become more informed, read, study, do research. Stop trying. I mean, it's okay to get information from your phone, but go to the libraries. Go to all the public libraries and try to do research, study, and do the old traditional way. I mean, use the traditional approach of studying and reading and doing actual research. You can go and Google some stuff, but you can't get everything from your iPhone or smartphone or cell phone. And just get hooked up with different community groups and organizations. I'm a member of the UNIA as well as the Operation Push, as well as in COBRA, the Reparation Group, as well as the National Alliance Against Political Repression and Racism, and the Civilian Police Accountability Council, and a few of the organizations. So So you get active.
So you're looking at the Underground Railroad podcast and television show. And Brother Rand, I want to thank you again for
You're welcome.
giving your extensive knowledge, brother. You're a giant as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the feel is mutual. I appreciate you for asking me to participate in this program and stuff. Here I am just multitasking right now. Okay.
The AI technology race, China versus US companies, a humorous yet real rivalry. Welcome to the world's most expensive tech soap opera, where trillion-dollar companies, government officials, and startup founders are all fighting over who gets to build the robot brain of the future. Grab your popcorn or your NVIDIA GPU if you can afford one. Here's the full story. The DeepSeek moment. China's Sputnik surprise. Just when American tech giants were feeling smug about their AI dominance, China pulled off a jaw-dropper. US stocks dropped sharply, and chipmaker NVIDIA lost nearly $600 billion in market value after a surprise advancement from a Chinese AI company, DeepSeek, which presented a ChatGPT-like AI model called R1 with all the familiar abilities, operating at a fraction of the cost of OpenAI's, Google's, or Meta's popular AI models. A shocking Chinese AI advancement called DeepSeek is sending US stocks plunging. CNN Business the kicker? The company said it had spent just $5.6 million.
To what your grandfather was doing. Any message for your grandchildren? Great.
Because I happen to have known someone who was in the NSA.
Okay.
All right? And they don't know what they'll know now. I've been in their building with him. Did you see it?
Yes, sir.
And they...
Some people don't know what NSA
The National Security Administration. And when I walked in there and wow. They got video screens. I mean, from here to 35th Street.
Those street cameras, right?
Those are the screens like you watch on a computer.
Right.
All right? They got a room where they listen to conversations all around the country. All right? That's why I can say what I said. But they let me go because he was an important person. And they figured if he was pregnant, it was all right. All right? They made a mistake, but I never forgot that.
Well, wait a minute. Wow.